Zach, I didn't even see this morning you're on. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Monica. All right, so good morning, everybody. Bright and early at 8 a.m. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I'm going to do a really brief overview of our organization before we get started. Let's see if it'll let me share my screen. There we go. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. Here we go. All right. So Tech Hub South Florida. So my name is Nikki Caboose. I am the interim CEO of Tech Hub South Florida. And this morning we have an awesome community coffee, which we do every other Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. The topic is the growing world of esports. And I'm actually really excited about this because this is a topic that I'm going to be learning as we go here this morning. It's a topic that we haven't done before, and I'm really excited about that. And I want to introduce our speakers here. So we've got Shane Vander, president at HADO Florida, Marcus Howard, CEO at MetArena, Derek Watford, co-founder at High Point Gamer, and Juan Duque, co-founder and CTO at Gaming Frog. And I do want to give a big shout out also both to Shane as one of our members, and then also to Marcus. Marcus actually helped introduce me to Derek, so thank you for that as well. Because again, this is not a world I'm super connected in, so I wanted to say thank you, Marcus, for that. And quick shout out to South Florida Business and Wealth, and also as our sponsor, and Beth Wagmeister from the Wag Group, who's actually going to be providing ASL services this morning also. So again, our sponsor, South Florida Business and Wealth. I do see I've got Mark on with us this morning. So once I'm done doing my little presentation here, I will give him a few minutes to address the audience also, because we are very happy to have them as a sponsor. So building South Florida's tech hub, this is our mission statement, but I'd like to explain a little bit about how we go about doing this. Our community creed. So Tech Hub South Florida is wholeheartedly committed to building a welcoming, collaborative, and inclusive community for all. We put inclusivity first, engage with others, are considerate to all, and don't sell to people. So in short, we want to make sure that everybody is welcome to the table in our tech community. And Tech Hub South Florida. So we are a nonprofit organization, 501c6. We are corporate member driven, and we currently have about 215 members or so from Miami-Dade to Martin County. And the purpose of fostering a community of technology, innovation, and creativity within the region. Some of our members here, we do have very entry level seed stage startups all the way to larger enterprise companies. Some of them are listed here, like Office Depot, City Furniture, UKG, Digital Resource, Boca Code. Again, there's many of them, but just wanted to give a shout out to a few of them here. And for our memberships, I won't go into detail into this, but we've got 4 different corporate membership levels. So for anybody that's interested and may need talent placement, maybe they want some PR and communication support, some opportunities for speaking, such as this morning, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to go into more detail with you if you're interested. A little bit about our weekly events. So our Tech Talks, we hold them alternating Monday nights. We do host them in West Palm, Boca, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. So we move them around the region. Our community coffees, like this morning, are every other Tuesday morning. They are typically a mix of technical, culture, talent. It's a little bit of everything. Our podcasts are the alternating Tuesdays from the community coffees, highlighting business leaders, startup leaders, funding, and even people within the startup community. And then our lunch and learns, which are Fridays from noon to 1. Those are typically entry-level workshops to teach you about JavaScript, Python, best practices to Agile, kind of anything within that tech and startup realm. And for anybody that's looking for a job, so on our website, which is techhubsouthflorida.org, there is a tab that says talent. We do have a job board there where there's actual jobs themselves that you can apply directly for. If for some reason you don't find the perfect job and you just want to get your resume out to a bunch of different companies, you can actually create a little quick profile, upload your resume, and once you hit submit, it goes to all of our member companies and any of them that have signed up to receive that service all at once. And our Slack channel. So to get more engaged, our Slack channel right now, techhubsouthflorida.org/Slack. We've got about 4,500 current members that are active on there right now. And if you'd like to be added to our Monday e-newsletters that go out every Monday afternoon, you can actually text us your email address to 561-250-7206, and then you'll automatically be added to that. And then I think I've got the slide in here. Yeah, I do want to mention this. So we've got coming up at the end of the month, July 30th to August 1st, we have the Magic City Cup, which for anybody who was there that last night, it's typically a soccer tournament. But this year, thanks to Monica, we've added some tech and startups in there. So we will have a sports tech panel, pitch competition. So there's going to be really some cool stuff this year that hasn't been in previous years. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Excuse me. And Mark, I'm going to give you the stage. So again, from South Florida Business and Wealth, thank you for being our sponsor. But Mark, you're happy to take it away.
Great. Thanks so much. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Sounds like you've got a great panel coming up, so I will try and be brief. It's not one of my strong points, but I'll do my best. Want to start off by saying, Nikki and Monica, you guys are doing a great job of bringing together the tech community with these events, so congratulations on that. A little bit about South Florida Business and Wealth, commonly known as SFBW. We bring together the C-suite community in South Florida, and we do it in a number of ways. We do it through our monthly magazine and our website. So between the two, we're reaching out to about 100,000 South Florida executives. And we also help connect executives in South Florida through multiple other platforms. They include a CEO Connect event. These are monthly get-togethers with C-suite executives. We do at different venues every single month, and happy to say, kicking off in August, they'll now be in person again. So we're excited about that. And we also hold 9 major awards events during the year, rewarding everyone from young professionals under the age of 40 to C-suite executives. We do excellence in HR. We're launching our diversity and inclusion awards in 2022. So we're doing some pretty exciting things. And lastly, we also publish annually the South Florida Legal Guide, which is kind of a who's who of the legal community, and it's now in its 21st year. So lots of different ways to connect and reach out to other executives. And I'll include my contact information today. So if anyone has any press releases, any announcements on things that you're doing, please let me know. And thanks again for having us.
Thank you so much, Mark. And I did not know that about the legal portion. So now I just learned something this morning.
There you go.
Of course, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So this morning, so we're going to jump right into it. But what I would like, before I get into the questions, I would like to have each of our panelists just really briefly introduce yourself, because I always like to have you guys introduce yourselves versus me doing it. I feel like obviously it's coming better from you than me. So if you can tell us just your name, the company, and then a little bit about your background, and then we'll get started. So I am going to just start with whoever's first on my screen here, and I've got Marcus Howard, you're first.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Marcus Howard. I'm the CEO of MetArena. I got Super Mario Brothers 3 for Christmas when I was 6. It inspired me to learn more about technology. I went on to get a technology degree and started a tech consulting firm. And then actually, through my love of video games, started building my own game before I recognized there was a major problem in the industry. So I started solving that with a multimedia search engine called Project MQ. And 2 years ago, pivoted that into esports to help brands of all sizes and people from all walks of life get into the video game industry.
Awesome. I love that you brought some props this morning. So next, I've got Shane.
Good morning. My name is Shane Vander. I'm the president and founder of Green Mouse Academy Studios and most recently HADO Florida. I've been involved in education technology for 25 years in Canada and in the United States. I'm actively involved in supporting STEM education. Locally, I co-chair a STEM competitions committee as part of the Palm Beach County STEM Education Council. My company and I work indirectly and directly with over 30,000 kids nationwide every year. And I'm really excited now, actually, and this morning especially, to be introducing a brand new augmented reality physical esports program to South Florida, and to share how with our partners in Japan, Mayleap Inc., that we're expanding the HADO Scholastic Esports experience and a professional esports league starting here and rolling it out nationwide. So thank you for the opportunity, Nikki, and the great panel.
Of course, thank you so much, Shane. That's really exciting. And let's see, next I've got Juan.
Thank you, Nikki. So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's great to be sharing the stage with Marcus, Derek, and Shane. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I am originally from Colombia. I've been living in the States for around 16 years. I'm a self-taught developer. And with one of my best friends, we realized that there was a huge opportunity when it comes to wagering in video games. So we created a platform that allows video gamers to play against each other for money. I used to play Lucas, my co-founder, for money, and he never used to pay. So what the platform does is basically guarantee that, right? That there's an actual payout to whoever wins. So we realize that there's a huge problem with millions of gamers that are doing this.
Love that story, Juan. And I have to say, shout out to Colombians, because I'm seeing so many of them everywhere, even Monica in here. So glad to hear that too. We've got another one.
Thank you.
All right. And Derek, of course, last but not least.
I'm Derek Watford, the CEO of High Point Gamer. Started High Point Gamer back in 2015 by producing tournaments and events. Worked in the NBA's 2K inaugural esports league, and quickly realized that this new budding space, needs assistance and help in order for it to move forward and be the opportunity that it provides for so many individuals, and decided that I'm gonna shift my position and help the industry, whether I'm helping gamers, brands, or organizations, to help create a more sustainable industry. And so one of my big focuses is using esports and gaming to create economic empowerment pipeline for those that could use economic empowerment, which especially since the pandemic, it seems like it's everybody. So thanks for having me, Nikki.
Yes, of course. Of course, of course. And you guys are throwing out some little nuggets already there that I'm really happy to talk about this morning. So I want to get started with the conversation with Shane, just for anybody that is interested in this discussion but may not know exactly what esports is. Can you just start out by kind of explaining what that is? Give us like a definition of esports.
Yeah, I was wondering why you picked me, but now I see with the intro to answer this question, because I'm probably the least qualified on the panel and maybe even the audience to kick that off. But doing so actually is probably apropos. And let me explain. My perspective on this may be familiar to some of those on the discussion today or later who view this, because if you would have asked me 3 years ago to describe esports, I wouldn't have known what you're talking about. I feel like I was Rip Van Winkle and I've been asleep for like 20 years or something like that. So I'll start with a simplistic description and then kind of elaborate. But also known as electronic sports, esports is a form of competition through computer gaming. Esports commonly takes the form of organized multiplayer online video game competitions. Those competitions often incorporate live broadcasts, commentary, and prize money. Esports, by the way, is now probably one of the fastest growing sports in the world. Now that definition, though, didn't really mean anything to me. I mean, it sounds good, but what really flipped the switch for me, and a little bit of a richer description with some revealing facts, were shared by Gerald Solomon. He's leads the North American Scholastic Esports Federation. And here's some quick industry facts that really help me connect the dots for those of you who may not be familiar. Going back in time, League of Legends 2014 championship, which is a big title, drew 27 million online viewers. And so to compare that, at the time, that's nearly equal to the NBA final, Major League Baseball World Series final, and the NHL Stanley Cup final combined. Fast forward now and a little bit into the future, global esports revenues are likely to exceed $1.5 billion by 2023. And that's part of the 180 or so billion dollar larger gaming industry. And in North America, that exceeds the North American film industry and pro sports industries combined. This is what surprised me as well. The global median age of esports fans is roughly about 32 years of age. And statistically, the esports audience has measurable metrics of people, an audience between the ages of 16 and 65, which was stunning to me. This is not a young kids playing video games industry. It's attracted billions of dollars in investment, often led by sports and media business celebrities. And pulling this closer to home, South Florida is home to the Misfits Gaming Group, which includes multiple esports teams. Their ownership and investment includes Miami Heat, Orlando Magic, groups that we happen to know about. And esports has really been described as the fusion of gaming, media, pop culture, and commerce. So despite its infancy, it's really been transformed from a vibrant niche to a really central form of global entertainment. It's likely to have a viewership by 2025 globally of nearly 1 billion people. But honestly, I'm still learning every day what esports is and what it's becoming. And I'll defer to the august panelists and others actually on this call who know far more than I do.
Thank you so much, Shane. Yeah, and for any of the other panelists, feel free for any of the questions to add anything as we go along as well. So if anybody would like to add to that, that was a wonderful description, Shane.
So I'm definitely going to point out the great stats that Shane has shared. The negative side to that is out of the $180 billion and the engagement, still less than 2% of minorities participate from a business standpoint, and mostly participate from a consumer standpoint. So we recognize there's a lot of room of improvement in the esports and gaming industry when it comes to diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, and just to add to Derek, esports, one of the biggest challenges is diversity and inclusion, specifically in some areas. We focus a lot in, for example, FIFA esports, and there's a huge challenge there when it comes to diversity. But to add to the esports definition, I think that esports has become this movement, right? Instead of just being defined as just competitive gaming itself, it has become into an actual movement that influences pop culture. You're now seeing brands like 100 Thieves being partnered with other brands like Gucci. So it's incredible in just this few years how much esports has grown into what we know as esports right now. It's a huge movement.
Yeah, Juan makes a great point.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Juan makes a great point. If you think about the new Space Jam movie, it's told basically from the perspective of a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
Like gaming is central to it, the metaverse. And so esports and gaming is becoming part of like just the regular social experience. I think something else that's important is if you look at the brain activity of someone who's competing at a high level in esports, it's nearly identical to someone who's competing at a high level in traditional sports, like at the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals. That level of stress and brain activity is, again, almost 1-to-1.
That's amazing. Yeah, I didn't know that. And actually, I just saw that movie this weekend with my kids as well. So it was a wonderful movie, wonderful remake there. I did have a question for you, and this is just off the top of my head as you guys were talking. But so we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and I did not know that stat, Derek, by the way, of 2%. But I was curious also, of course, this is coming from me as a female, but so I had read a while ago that on the players side, that isn't it there actually a large percentage of women that play but just don't get involved on the business side, right? Like isn't like 40 or 50% like women or something like that? Do any of you guys know that? It is? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, 45% of gamers in the US are women.
Okay, but it's just not on the business side. So the same thing with the brown and black community, I'm assuming is similar, right? Where it's on the player side, but not business. Okay.
Right. As consumers, very well represented, but from a value creation and ownership, a leadership perspective, it's a lot of room for growth. And it's not for a lack of want or a lack of talent, but the lack of pathways and opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can speak a little bit from the streaming side.
Sure.
We run interviews on women streamers for FIFA, and the hardships that they face trying to become a successful streamer, they're not comparable to what men face, right? They face sexism every day on platforms like Twitch and YouTube. It's really hard for a woman to become a successful streamer. And you know, when we interviewed, I think we interviewed around 3 women streamers, and I just admire them because they still do what they love, even though they face all of this sexism, right? So I think, you know, they have it harder when it comes to being successful in gaming, and that's why we need to improve, you know, as a whole community.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that because I was wondering that as you guys were talking.
Just wanted to add, Nikki, to add to that. I actually had a surprising, eye-opening conversation with one of my former employees, a vibrant young woman, and I was actually making a pitch to the group that she's with, and trying to find out who's a gamer. And she actually jumped up and said, "I love Call of Duty. I'm super competitive. I'm really good." You know, but she said, interesting enough, she said she keeps her identity as a woman and as a young person anonymous because of exactly what Juan said. It can be a brutal place, and that's especially for minorities and women. You know, that whole issue of inclusion. It's something that we need to tackle, and the industry is aware of that, and opportunity to really grow and improve.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was just wondering. So I appreciate that you guys are obviously much smarter in this area and know some of these stats. So thank you. So the next question is for you, Marcus. So I know that you are involved in Synapse. I believe you're an Impact board member, correct? And of course, an incredible resource for the gaming industry. I've personally been following you forever, even though this is the first time I've had you on a panel and got to actually work with you. And I just wanted to know, can you use yourself as an example for us and maybe tell us, how did you get into gaming? How were you able to turn your passion into a profession and, end up actually working in esports?
Great question. And we've been working together, I guess it was 2017. I went to whatever the conference was, it was over in Miami. I bought a ticket, I missed my plane, and I had to drive across the state. So
oh gosh, I met you, I don't even know how many years ago now, but it was at SoupX, the startup expo.
Yeah, SoupX, startup expo. So like I said earlier, I got Super Mario Brothers 3 when I was 6, and I started learning about technology because I was fascinated with video games. In the 9th grade, my twin brother and I actually started writing code for our first app on the TI-83 Plus graphing calculator to build a video game. Ironically, my parents in the 9th grade were trying to teach us to learn code to build websites, but this was Web 1.0, like we had no interest in that. But as soon as we made the connection between video games and code and understood that all games are apps, just like this app we're using, except the purpose is to entertain, then we were all in about learning about technology. So then I went on to, again, get a technology degree, and my brother and I were building this multimedia search engine. In 2017, we recognized that we had a global community in 122 countries, but 70% of our audience was actually international. So we didn't have like a real significant local focus. So we started doing in-person activations for indie game arcades. And indie is short for independent, just like independent music and film, there are indie games. We recognize that there's so much more to the gaming industry than just games with guns and violence, and nothing against those games, they have their place. But for parents and brands, they typically want to stay away from those experiences. So we were producing this indie game arcade to explain to parents and students that there's more to gaming than, again, guns and violence. And we did an in-game, in-person activation in Atlanta in 2017, was the first year that DreamHack, which is a global gaming events company, the first time they did an event in Atlanta, we produced an indie game arcade there. And that's the first time I got to see esports in person. Again, I came from the gaming industry, had only gotten into esports that year. And the next 2 years, esports revenue made up about 75% of the money that we were bringing in-house. So we recognized that there was more opportunity for us there than in solving game discovery. And ironically, we're still solving game discovery, but from a business perspective. So that's how I got into esports, and that's what I'm doing esports now, is connecting brands with esports so they can use esports the same way they do social media.
That's interesting. I do remember that with you doing the indie gaming platform. I do remember that. It's funny. Yeah. So would any of you else like to share kind of how you got into it for any of the audience that may be curious?
On my side, I've been a competitive gamer since SOCOM, but if I'm honest, I drank the Kool-Aid on believing that gaming was a waste of time. So I would work my professional tech job by day, and then in the middle of the night, I'm competing. So me and my co-founder, we were actually trying to solve the issue of teens not having anything to do during the summer. We decided, hey, let's put together a Madden or 2K tournament, and then that allows them also to make money off of their gaming skills. And in doing so, we quickly realized when we had people coming to compete from Maine, California in the tournaments that we actually had a thing, and that thing was esports. And so as I dived more into like good rules or regulations and how things should be ran, I quickly realized that, hey, it's another industry out there that we can plug our community into for increased opportunity, especially from an economic standpoint. And so that said, hey, let's go full time in creating this venture. I'm originally from the graphic design, private software sector. So I knew that my peers in the tech space, from coders and developers, that they started their interest because of video games. And I myself, as a graphic designer at the time, the only reason I was interested in using a computer is because I needed a computer to play video games. And so I recognized the bridge that an interest in technology that gaming provided. So.
I do love that too, that you had that passion there and used it to help other people. And then in doing that, realized there's actually a business there. Yeah.
And with me, I've been a video gamer all my life, and since I was like 10, 12, we were hosting tournaments between our friends. Um, that to me like is part of esports, right? Because that before like all the LAN tournaments and all the big esports events that are out there, people were doing this in their homes with their friends, and that's like how really esports was born. Through friends playing video games, enjoying what they do. Um, but in reality, when I came to see how big esports was when we started thinking about the idea of opening a business with my friend, when we were discussing the opportunity of doing a platform like Gaming Frog. And this was just before esports becoming mainstream, especially around the time that, I don't know if you guys have heard about Ninja and the whole Fortnite, $100 million esports events and stuff like that. We realized how big this was. I just thought it was just a couple of 100,000 video gamers doing what they love, but in reality it was a huge business and a huge industry. So there was a huge opportunity to attack there.
And I was right there with way back in with Pong and Telstar in the very first Pong tournament 40 years ago, and then I kind of slept for 30 years. In all seriousness, though, my interest in connection with esports was really driven to what I had seen and experienced with competitive robotics, and really linking for young people that adrenaline pumping competitive sports experience, but bringing that to the STEM community and inspiring kids to have that same feeling that physical sports team members and competitors get in competition, and using that to inspire kids to pursue STEM education careers and so on. And so I understood it with robotics. I could see, a stadium in Texas filled with, screaming kids cheering for robots in competition. And then as soon as my eyes opened and started to see coding and gaming and gaming sports and what kind of ecosystem and career exploration development could be wrapped around that experience, it was as an easy shift. Now I'm just catching up. So.
Very good. Thank you all for telling us a little bit about your background there. It's really interesting just to hear you guys, how you've gotten into it. I do want to ask you, Derek. So you, at least I've been told this by Marcus, is that you have been doing esports events and speaking across the entire state for years, including, like events like Synapse, like Marcus. So how have you seen the landscape of esports change over the last few years? Because I feel like, especially as we're talking, everybody's mentioning like really the last 5-6 years that it's gotten bigger and bigger.
So in my experience specifically, I've recognized that I remember when I was trying to go to the school board or other organizations and saying, hey, you should do this thing to engage your students. And I would get the gloss over eyes once I mentioned video games as if I was talking about something irrelevant. Fast forward now, I can say
Totally.
esports and people are like, hey, I want to talk to you. Can you come over here? And so that growth has been amazing to watch. But when it comes to my region in particular, I really feel like Central Florida, Tampa area is so booming with growth and opportunity that we could dominate from an esports perspective just because of our location, our weather, our connection to Orlando, Miami, etc. So I feel like we're still behind in that regard. But the industry as a whole, I've definitely seen the growth, but I've also recognized that when it comes to new things, you see the problems and you see the challenges. You also see the failures within trying to be successful in the space. And for many of my colleagues, the pandemic messed up their investment that they had in esports, whether they were starting new venues or new esports arenas or new esports teams. And to see a lot of them fail, not because esports wasn't valuable, but just because their business model wasn't prepared for a pandemic to interrupt it on little to none resources. It's been an amazing journey. I've met great people like Marcus, Shane in the space that have pioneered and have really helped bring more attention to the esports space.
Yeah, I think you're very right with that, Derek. Is like even with myself, when I heard esports, I thought, years back, it was just a bunch of young kids playing games and there wasn't anything serious there, and that's definitely changed. We're definitely seeing that it's actually can be a career. You can start businesses. And I think you're right too, is that even the people, like Shane was talking about, that are in STEM education with the kids, that they're seeing that too. So I've noticed that change as well. Is there anything that any of you would like to add to that also? No? Okay, good answer, Derek. All right, so my next question here is actually for you, Juan. So I'm actually really interested in this. So I want to know, can you tell us a little bit about your experience, of course, being a startup and working within the industry, and how being a part of the FAU Tech Runway Accelerator program has supported your growth goals?
Sure, absolutely. When we started the company, we were very new to the industry. We didn't know anyone. And we, both my co-founder and I, were FAU graduates, and we came across the FAU Tech Runway. We applied, and I think that's where we did our first pitch to a panel of FAU Tech Runway judges. Uh, I remember a lot at the end of our pitch. The judges were like, "Okay, so where's the video game?" So people thought that we were actually a game. So it was we realized that we have a huge challenge. With people that are very new with esports, they don't know what it is about. So we had to like completely change our pitch and just basically explain what esports is and what we're doing with esports and wagers and all that. We were able to get into FAU Tech Runway. We were one of the winners. It was back in 2018. Um, and FAU Tech Runway was great. We met a lot of great people in there. We actually met our first angel investor through FAU Tech Runway in one of their pitch events. Back in 2019, we raised a friends and family round, and thanks to FAU Tech Runway and their support, we were able to close it. So it's been great. FAU Tech Runway has been a great resource for us to grow, right? Reese Williams, he's the director of FAU Tech Runway. He has been an asset for our company. So huge shout out to FAU Tech Runway. And if anybody's watching that, if you're an FAU graduate or you're a student and you want to start a company, definitely check FAU Tech Runway out because it will, the resources that they provide and the mentorship and everything, it will definitely help you a lot if you're just getting started, right?
That's wonderful, Juan. Yeah, and we've got, I mean, so many great, accelerator programs and incubators that are here in South Florida. I mean, we've got 35 Mules and FAU Tech Runway, 1909. I mean, now the new Innovation Center at NSU, BCEX, there's a ton of them in our area. I don't know, Derek and Marcus, are you guys connected to any of the accelerators over in Tampa, or know if there's any there that may be good resources for folks in your area?
There's the Tampa Bay Wave. There's
That's
also
right.
Tampa Bay Innovation Center, which is more on the St. Pete side. Actually, my old company, Project NQ, was a member and I guess currently still a member and alumnus of the Tampa Bay Waves Accelerator. And to go back to your previous question, I think that speaks again to about the evolving ecosystem. There's now more support from the ESO and investor perspective here in Florida, because I applied for the FAU Tech Runway. They had a statewide pitch competition. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I applied there in 2015 with Project NQ, and I remember speaking to the judges, and one of them said specifically, "This sounds like an interesting idea, but you really should go pitch this over in like Silicon Valley or in California on the West Coast." When I spoke about the gaming industry, everyone basically didn't believe that the gaming industry was as large as it was and there's as much money in as it was. So to see Juan now come through with his company in the same state, specifically in the same region, and get an investment and have all this progress. And we've got an investment here in Tampa from Florida funders into a gaming company. One of the new companies in the Tech Diversity Accelerator here in Tampa Bay is also an esports company. It's called The Gamers. It's GAMEHERS. It's a gaming community around women in gaming. That's happening because the ecosystem's now waking up to this opportunity.
It's changing, yeah. No, that's huge. And I actually didn't know that you had that background with FAU Tech Runway. So it just shows, I mean, it seems like everything that you guys are saying, it all seems to be like really happening in the last just handful of years. Because that was what, 6 years ago, right? You said 2015. So that's,
2015,
yeah,
that's
that's
right.
huge.
Yeah, and also to add to some of the accelerators that there are down here in South Florida, we were part of the 500 Startups Growth Program down here, and we actually like doubled our user base within like 3 weeks of being part of that program. So it's a huge resource, and we were very fortunate to be selected and to be part of it. Um, to add to what Marcus was saying, now whenever you go to an accelerator or you pitch to an investor, you mention esports and they listen, right? And that's great to see, and great to see that a lot more gaming companies are being created, right, and being part of accelerators.
It's awesome. Yeah, they actually take you serious now. Yeah. That's really good. So I want to talk a little bit about, so this next question is for Shane. I want to talk a little bit about some of the cool technologies that are being used in esports. Can you tell us specifically about HADO and a little bit about how HADO is using augmented reality?
Sure. And I think specific to HADO and esports technologies, but I think technology innovation and cool technologies in general, it always starts by some dreamer or innovator. I don't know, I'm getting an echo on my end. Is that, you guys hearing that?
I think it's gone now.
Okay. And so I'm always on the hunt for that STEM hero or STEM inspiring story when I'm looking for something new. And that kind of is a good segue into the innovation that HADO uses. And so I'll tell you a little clip here, a little story. Every young person dreams at one time or another of having a superpower, living in a fantasy-filled world like the ones shown in movies or comic books or video games. And there was a young founder of a Tokyo-based technology company named May Leap, and he had such a passion. He dreamed of creating some sort of reality where he could fire energy balls at rivals, or with a wave of his hand, pull up a light shield to protect himself from attacks, similar to like games like Dragon Ball or some of his comic book heroes. And in 2014, his name is Hiroshi Fukuda, turned his childhood dream into reality, and literally augmented reality by inventing a brand new esport or physical esport called HADO. And I feel privileged to actually be partnered with him and his team in bringing this sport to the United States. And the technical side of esports gaming and even HADO isn't really my area of expertise, but it certainly inspired me. And I'll defer to my colleagues on the panel and others on the call to talk further about the technologies in general. But suffice to say that I think even as an esports newcomer, I can recognize that some of these extended reality technologies, or the blending of the physical and digital experience in a meaningful way, is really the obvious future destiny of esports and gaming in general. You see movies like Ready Player One, and in the sense of how to use augmented reality. So there's a CGI overlay to the experience. Players wear a headset, but they're seeing the physical space. HADO is played in an arena the size of about half of a tennis court, 3-on-3. It's similar to the timeless sport of dodgeball, where you're firing energy balls and raising up shields, destroying life petal cells on the opponents in a fast-paced action game. But for the viewers and the players, you're not just seeing the reality through the augmented viewer, you're seeing the CGI overlays. So you're seeing the score, you're seeing opponents' digital life petals, you're seeing the fireballs hit and collide with life petals. And the spectators who are there live watching on a big screen or through a streamed experience are seeing the same thing. They're literally seeing live, real life players embedded inside a video game playing. And I think more and more that blending of physical and digital together is going to be obvious to create a richer, engaging playing experience. It's just a matter of time. And like I said, I'm thankful we may be one of the first organized physical esports in existence at the moment, but that's certainly not going to stay that way. At this point, our goal here in the US is to develop a scholastic esports experience to roll out career discovery and really just develop real life business and life skills for kids and young people. HADO is just the hook. And we're also at the same time looking to roll out a network of HADO game operators across the country and a semi-pro competitive league as well.
Yeah, that's so cool, Shane. I remember your tech talk a while ago. So for anybody that is listening that hasn't seen the video of this, it's actually pretty exciting to see it be an esports that's physically in person and seeing people run around like a normal sport, but with these like goggles on, and it's pretty cool. It's very interesting. And I wanted to actually ask Juan, so similar question, but how is Gaming Frog integrating artificial intelligence? When I read this about Gaming Frog, I was like, I needed to hear more. So that's why I implemented this question here. But I know that in a little bit what I had read about you is saying that you're integrating artificial intelligence to like automate certain processes that are currently done manually. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sorry, I was muted. Sure, I can definitely. We started using AI to pull data out of a stream, right? So you have streams like Twitch or YouTube where a player is playing, Call of Duty or FIFA. We applied it to FIFA. So one of the things that we rely on right now is basically an honor system that a user has to input the score of their games in order for us to determine who is the winner. So it was around back in 2020. We hosted a $2,000 FIFA tournament, and we were working on this AI component of the app, and we wanted to automate the whole thing. So what we did is we basically used AI to pull data from a live stream in Twitch. So basically it was just having like a robot watch the game and tell you what's happening, right? So as the game was progressing, the AI will throw data like, the player passed, the player shot, there's a goal scored. Just basically, if you guys use like stats app for like NBA or NFL or soccer, all of that data is getting pulled, right from the pitch. right? We're applying that for video gaming because video gaming always takes place either online or in person, but there's always a stream of video. So we're trying to pull data from there automatically using AI. And I always say that with AI, there were things that you couldn't done like a few years ago. And this doesn't only apply just to video games. You can apply to any video. Um, at the beginning of the call, I remember somebody saying that it was very cool the captions that we have in the bottom, and that's basically done with AI, right? And AI is just listening to the conversation and creating a transcript as we speak. So it's exciting to see what we can do with AI. AI is a powerful, powerful tool, and we hopefully we can implement it not just in automating just manual processes, but to create technology that changes the industry.
Thank you so much, Juan, for that. And I'm going to save this because we're going to talk about some K through 12 stuff with STEM with the kids in a moment. So I saw your question, Sheila, in chat. I do want to, just before we get to that, to ask Derek, because I know this is something, of course, everybody's probably wondering about as well, is can you talk a little bit about some of the career opportunities that are being created, the lucrative jobs? Of course, this is helping with inclusivity as well, but how is esports changing our entire community? Like, how is it helping support Florida's overall economy as well?
So the economic and career opportunities that are available in esports, like we have this chart that I don't even know how many jobs there is, but it's a massive list of jobs that you can actually do in the industry. So you don't have to be a gamer or even interested in gaming to participate, but you can lend your skills, talents, and abilities and generate a check from it, participating in the industry. Those opportunities are great for anyone, whether you're a content creator, you're a good project manager, organizer, a good marketing, content creator, a copywriter, investment, finance, legalese, etc. Like the opportunities are massive. And I think that is the part that was missing in the beginning when we were first trying to pioneer esports. Like everyone we talked to only could think about the video game sitting down portion and how annoyed they were with their own kids, nieces, or nephews with playing video games, not recognizing that that same annoyance with the right type of focus can create a bridge or a pipeline for your child to be successful in the future, especially due to how prevalent technology is with the mobile phone and social media. And when you look at online and see how many young professionals, and I say young as in kids, that are actually paying their parents' mortgages based off what they're doing with video games or content creation. If I had that in my household, we would be in Barbados every weekend if I had my kids generating that type of revenue. And I think that is the opportunity that parents or the older generations are now seeing value in, because everyone could use a few extra dollars. And if you can have your child generating their own money to pay for their own love for video games, that's a win-win.
Yeah, and I think what you said is really key, Derek, is that I think people looked at just the gaming industry overall as just that, just the game, and seeing it as a kid's thing to do only. And I think now, like you were just saying when you started out answering that question, is you don't even have to be into gaming. There's so many different things that you can do, just like any other industry, where you can have real careers within this space. And I think that's something that maybe too has been changing over the years. Because I mean, even for me, it's funny when you said that, because I kind of hit a heartstring there, because I'm like, I do the same thing. I sit there and yell at my kids all day playing games. Both of them want to do it all day long, but that there are real careers there. And like we were talking about early on, is that you can turn that passion and love for a game into a real career, which I think people didn't see just a handful of years ago. Yeah, that's awesome. So I know we've got, because I'm watching the time, we've got just about 5 minutes here. So I do want to get that question in about the K through 12 and STEM for kids. So Marcus, I know that you do a lot of work through junior achievement. Can you tell me how you're teaching students, and of course their parents too, about some of these amazing STEAM careers in esports?
Sure, and that's a great question. And I just uploaded 2 images for everyone here, and hopefully you can send it out to anyone on, tuning in through Facebook or through your email list. But the first image has about 110 career opportunities in the video game industry. You think about esports, it's electronic sports. So if you combine everything from an infrastructure standpoint that makes traditional sports work, arenas and teams and merchandise and broadcast deals, legal contracts, things of that nature, and then add in everything that makes video games work. So sales and marketing, which is also on traditional sports, but creative design and story, things of that nature, animations, it's 100+ career opportunities. And to your point earlier, you don't have to be a coder to be in gaming and esports, just like you don't have to be a content creator or a professional gamer to be in gaming and esports. The second image, I think, does a better job of translating traditional non-gaming career paths. So you'll see things that you probably recognize in your 9-to-5, those types of roles. And I think it's important to communicate that both to students, but also to parents and teachers. So that's one of the things my brother and I did. We partnered with Junior Achievement back in 2019. They already had a STEAM summer camp, and we augmented their camp with a game development course where we used video games to teach those kids how to make their own games, which taught them not only to code, but also to start their own businesses. Because independent game developers, again, are just small businesses. Their product or service is gaming and entertainment. One of the other things I'm working on now is a book. That's the book that I wish I had growing up to offer my parents and teachers. When my parents said the same thing that you probably say to your kids, get off video games, it's a waste of your time, it's gonna rot your brain. Because my parents didn't know, and my teachers didn't know. So I'm trying to solve that problem the best way that I can.
Wonderful. Yeah. And the question that was in chat, I don't know specifically if any of you have any insight into this, but Sheila Van Hoosut, she's actually on our board and helps. She's one of the chairs for our K-12 Tech Talent Committee. And so she's asking the question, is there any government red tape that needs to be eliminated or cleared up to help the esports industry grow in Florida? Do any of you have any insight into that at all?
I think Shane will probably have the most when it comes to red tape and being a true innovator. On my side, I can't say there's any government red tape that hinders esports. I think just from a region, we should mimic like Georgia and provide tax incentives or some type of incentive for businesses that are centered around gaming and esports, so that they can relocate here or thrive here.
Yeah, I don't know about specifically one particular area that, with government red tape, but I know just in general, there's some things. I mean, there's barriers that we have to get over with parents, and Marcus and Derek mentioned that, and educators as well. I think there's issues when you're bringing in any outside technology into schools. As soon as it goes to legal and they start looking at, safety, security, and all that, by then the esports season is over by the time all the lawyers get done looking at things. And I also think in general, I mean, I don't have as much experience in this, but when you're looking at game publishers and then event producers and franchisors and, all these different moving parts, the legalities get complex, and it's because it's still a pretty young industry, and it takes a while to untangle some of that. It gets a little sticky, it gets a little messy, but I think as the industry matures, it'll smooth out.
Just to complement what Shane was saying is when we started Gaming Frog, we didn't know the legal challenges that we were going to have. We thought it's like, hey, we're just going to open the platform and, we're going to have a ton of users. But when we created the company, it was very hard for us because we are regulated state by state, right? So we can operate, for example, in 47 different states. And that has to do with not gambling, because we're not gambling, but what we call games of skill. So very similar to what FanDuel, DraftKings are doing. But we've seen that, regulation is moving towards embracing games of skill, even gambling in most states. So, for us would be great for states to start regulating things like games of skill, because it allows us to operate legally within a certain set of guidelines.
Perfect. And I, of course, every time we're having a good discussion, I know we're right at time right now. I wanted to ask so much more questions about the talent and about inclusion, and there's diversity. There's so many other things, but
Just have us
um,
back, Nikki. Just have us back.
I know. I always feel like with the good conversations, you always have to have a part two. So we'll definitely have to, but because I feel like there's so many questions that I want to ask. But I do want to thank all of you. So Marcus, Shane, Juan, and Derek, this has been great. I know I've learned a lot because, again, I'm very green in this area. And I promise I will stop yelling at my kids about playing so many games after this. So thank you guys. And also, of course, anybody that is watching, whether live on Facebook or here in Zoom with us. I really appreciate all of you, and hopefully we will have a part two. So hopefully everybody has a good day, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Bye-bye.